And so distractions are usually good things.
People back in the day would have been like, oh, I need to put down my book. I need to like set it down and spend time with those around me. But
our hearts want to be captured by spectacle.
And it's really interesting to see because Felicity knows like it's not show day. And then she'll be like, oh, we get to watch a show. She's like, Eddie, we're watching a show.
Yeah. What's up, guys? Ginger and Jeremy here, and we're back for another episode. And you're listening to this episode right now or watching this episode probably on your phone. And that's what we want to talk about, kind of.
Distractions. So, yeah.
It's going to be a convicting one. I posted on my Instagram the other week a quote from John Piper that said, one of the great uses of Twitter and Facebook, and we'd have to update that now to X and Instagram, is going to be to show on the last day that prayerlessness was not because of a lack of time, something like that.
Yep.
And I was convicted by that, so I thought, if I have to deal with being convicted by this, I'm going to have everyone else be convicted by this too.
Yeah.
So I put it on my Instagram. But that's a real thing. Distractions and all the time we spend on our phones. Mm-hmm. And specifically, we want to discuss guarding our marriage through distractions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that every person is bombarded. Like in the world we live in today, I think we're all bombarded by the distractions around us, whether it is from our phones or just the chaos of life. We can live such busy lives that we never slow down, and we can distract ourselves until we are no more. And I think that that's a danger, especially for when we think about like eternity, when we think about the things that actually matter.
Yeah.
We can just entertain ourselves and distract ourselves from the reality of, the coming, death and judgment and all of those things too. So I think that's something that happens, and it's interesting. Like there are times when we will face really difficult things that kind of like jolt us, and it makes us stop and think about what actually matters. And then you don't want to be distracted in those moments. You think like, wow, I've been just kind of like going about my life, and now this difficulty's here. Okay, I need to face it now. And I think distractions can come in many forms, but that's just one that I'm thinking about initially. It's just like you forget what actually matters in life.
So that literally happened to me on our last podcast episode when we were talking about weddings, and you brought up how we would journal through the preparing for the wedding, and through life we would keep a journal. And going back and reading those brings you back into those moments. And while we were talking about that, I was thinking of all the little games or scrolling on social media that has robbed me of journaling or keeping track of or enjoying or being present in the moment of so many little memories that we think are mundane, but they're not. Like bedtime with our daughters is not mundane, where it's just like, yeah, here we go again, bedtime routine. No, we're going to look back one day and miss those little girls who are squealing and running around the room and wanting us to read them a book and wanting more snacks and asking for, us to stay up and give them another hug and kiss. And in the moment, it's easy to think, well, I just want to get out and do the next thing, or I want to, be distracted by some trivial whatever. But those are the moments that we're going to cherish. And distractions steal those from us and rob those of us, where you think back, just like when you're having a conversation with someone and you think, I was listening, but I didn't hear anything they said, or I heard, but I didn't listen because I was distracted. We'll look back on moments, seasons, hopefully not, but weeks, months, years of our life and feel like, wait, what was all that? That was a blur, because we were distracted with so many things. And so I had that realization even as we were talking on the last episode about Jana's wedding, that I don't want distractions to rob us.
For sure. Because I think that they're just, like I said, they're everywhere. And if it's not your phone, it's going to be something else, And so just being intentional about how we live our lives is like what we want to do. And we're not the best at that at times. There's so many seasons where we will both just say, man, we've not been being very intentional. We've been so distracted, and we want to like refocus and think about those things that do matter. And so, yeah, I think it's important for all of us to do that.
How convicted are you at 10 a.m. on a Sunday morning when you get that
Screen
notification
time
on your iPhone?
Yeah, usually we're sitting in church and it pops up and I'm like,
are you going to reveal what screen time you're clocking in at or no?
Oh, actually I haven't looked at it, probably because I would be too convicted. I've been doing better, I think, at that, because the one thing that I spend the most time on right now is Wordle. My Wordle, my games, my New York Times games.
Yeah.
That's what I spend too much time on.
So this podcast is actually brought to you by the New York Times game app. Which
it is. No, it's not.
Imagine we had an ad for the
That'd
most
be so dope, actually.
Hey, that would be a cool partnership.
It's a good one. I feel like it's a good thing, because like I send it to you.
Yeah.
I'm like doing connections and Wordle. Strands
is a new one. That's good.
Is legit. So we'll play our like 4 or 5.
So the mini crossword is my jam right now.
I get so frustrated with that one, because I feel like I rarely complete it in the amount of time I went to complete it. The other day I did it in like 46 seconds. So talk about distractions. That's like we'll do that usually like in the evening, and we will have to play our New York Times games.
But I just set a time limit for that. I didn't set it, but I just said we should be done by 10:15, right?
Yeah, you did. I remember that.
Because
then I didn't do it the past couple nights, because you're like, we should not be doing this at like 11 o'clock at night.
We're sitting there in bed and we're both looking at our phones like old people doing crossword puzzles, except in the new,
we need to start it earlier for
way.
Sure. It doesn't take that long. I did mine the other day in 5 minutes, both of them.
Both
or like
of what?
both.
Oh, both games? Or
no,
your
like
game?
three or 4 games, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I got some quick so it's funny because we text each other our results, and we'll be sitting next to each other. Who can relate to this? Texting each other or sending each other reels.
I feel like that game, though, is not the worst, but
it's engaging your mind.
It is. And you're doing like the word games and stuff. It's like, it's a fun thing to do. So we'll do that like most evenings. Right. But it can be a distraction. I think like we've talked about just having phones out of our room. That way we don't get distracted. Because like you can start out with like a New York Times game, and then you end up scrolling for a bit, and then we're sending reels to each other. And a lot of times I'm like, okay, I'm just going to watch the reels you're watching, because then it's like more fun. You're doing it together.
Yeah.
Or we'll just like, say, okay, we're not going to do that tonight.
Right.
Like, or we'll play a card game or something like that. So,
and I think a lot of distraction comes down to good things that take up an inordinate amount of time.
Yes, for sure.
So I preached Hebrews 12 recently, where the preacher is talking to the Christians about how are they going to make it to the end and not abandon Christ. And he says, we abandon weights and sins which cling so closely, running with endurance the race set before us. So the preacher uses this metaphor of someone running, and he says, a runner is not going to run a race weighed down by, bulky clothes. And so just as Christians, we need to get rid of weights and sins. And the sins is obvious. Like, you can't love your sin and live for your sin and expect to live for Jesus. Jesus said that, you can't serve God and money. You got to choose your master. But weights is far more difficult to diagnose because it's often good things.
Yeah.
And so distractions are usually good things, like entertainment or fun games or our phones. Even as we're talking about the New York Times app, it's like, that's a lot of fun and we enjoy that. But then when it becomes a distraction is when it keeps you from either something also good but necessary at that time.
Yeah.
So it's at the wrong time, wrong place, or too much of. And so we can really become swallowed pretty easily by these distractions. And we live in a world of distraction, don't we? I mean,
for sure.
Constant sensory bombardment everywhere we look.
Yeah. And I think like distractions have always been around, but I think in the world we're living in, like you said, it's just the age of technology. It just is a different kind of pull.
Yeah.
And so I think probably people back in the day would have been like, oh, I need to put down my book. I need to like set it down and spend time with those around me. But I mean, now it's like you have so many flashing lights and things around you that just really draw you in. And it's like a different kind of pull. I feel like.
I was talking to a buddy yesterday who said he got rid of all social media on his phone, Instagram, whatever, because of the distraction, but he left Facebook because Facebook wasn't a distraction. So he left Facebook, and now he spends all his time on Facebook. So he's like hooked on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's like, we'll find anything to be a distraction.
Yep.
So the certain things like, okay, these websites I'm just constantly going back to, checking the news or checking the games. So I'm going to not go to those websites. Well, unless you deal with the root issue of like, no, you're going to actually proactively do something, then you're going to find another website to go to, or another game or social media site or whatever to distract you. So, okay, I think everybody can relate to the distractions.
What are some ways that we can keep from being distracted? Like, what are things that you found? I mean, I feel like you're really good at like reading whenever you want to like not be distracted. You'll like sit down and read an actual book, which I think is great. Like, that's a good way to like engage your mind in a different way. And that's something that's like enjoyable. It's like a hobby, right? Like there are things that you can do that are like not as bad, I guess. It's like being on a screen or putting that in front of you all the time. I don't know, like what are ways that we can not be so distracted in this age where everything's just constantly bombarding us?
Yeah, I don't know if I have I'm not the perfect model of it because I do so easily get distracted. But yeah, I think it's just an intentionality, right? And we have to be intentional because we're up against it with the distractions, whether it's Netflix, whether it's our phones. They've designed those to hook us.
Yes.
So
for sure.
They design Netflix to binge watch. That's why as soon as you finish an episode, it's like 8 seconds.
The next episode, or like they tease the next episode and show you what's going to happen.
Even those little dopamine hits of the phone vibrating or the dings, that's intentional.
Mine doesn't do that anymore. It's broken. It's old.
You've beat the system. You've beat Apple.
I figured it out.
You outsmarted them. Just keep a phone that's dilapidated. Yeah. But that actually gives you this dopamine hit, which is why people feel this compulsion to respond to text messages immediately because it's this, you feel hooked to this interaction. And so we're up against it. The tech companies, they're all coming after us. They're trying to get us distracted because for them, it's good. The longer we spend on their devices, the more invested we are as a consumer.
Competing Spectacles.
So yes, what a great book. Little plug for Tony Reinke's book, Competing Spectacles.
Gotta check it out.
He talks about, we are a society of spectacle. And what he means by that is not like monocles or like eyeglasses, but a spectacle as in an event. And so we're constantly being captured, our minds, our attention by all of these events, whether it's a tiny event on your phone, like a group text or a text message or a notification from social media, or it's a commercial or it's a billboard, or it's larger spectacles like sporting events or political campaign rallies or whatever. And he goes into, our hearts want to be captured by spectacle. And actually, he does a bit of an analysis on Donald Trump. And love him or hate him, he says Donald Trump, the reason he got elected in 2016 is because he mastered the art of the spectacle. So people are obsessed with watching him. They might be hate watching him or they love watching him, but they can't turn away from watching him. And you see that even at like the DNC a couple weeks ago. It's like they mention Donald Trump constantly. It's almost like this enamored because he is a performer in a sense, and he's mastered the spectacle. And so everybody's watching. And that in itself is, this subtle art form, but we're surrounded by people who've mastered the spectacle. So we're constantly looking. And what Tony does in this short little book, which we should put a link to in the show notes, he demonstrates that as Christians, we need to be enamored by the greatest spectacle, which is Christ and what he has done for us on the cross and what he's even now doing for us, interceding for, living for us now, helping us, giving us grace, his Spirit. So being enamored by a spectacle isn't wrong, but it's what spectacle are you being enamored by? And there's something greater. And I think about that even with our kids. Like, as you look at these Instagram reels, and then you look at your children who are growing up before you, those are both spectacles. And which one are you going to be enamored by? Which one are you going to be glued to? And it's convicting because I really don't want to be glued to that phone.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that screen time notification on a Sunday morning and be like, man, I want to be comfortable and go, yeah, that's the appropriate amount of time I spend on my phone because I need to spend that much time for this, and that. As my kids are growing up like faster than ever right next to me, you know? So, well, goodness, you asked how. I think it is that's a key to it, is understanding there's something greater that should capture our attention.
And there are times to, like you said, there are times to enjoy some of those things and watch a show together, all of that. Like, I think even for our kids, we have limited their screen time, which I think we've talked about before, because we realized like so many things, it affects them in so many ways when they're just sitting in front of a screen. And so we've limited it to most weeks. It's like they have one show day and they can, watch only on that day, because it just clears up the rest of the week to where they're more creative and they're engaging in play. And if they're bored, that's okay, because it's like they're going to actually end up being more creative at the end of the day. They're going to figure out something to do. And it's engaging their minds in a different way than just sitting in front of a screen and like vegging out, Right. So I think like even for us, maybe we should do we should do a challenge for ourselves, because like I feel like those things can get in the way, and then you have so much that you need to do and you want to do, but then the phones and screens can be such a distraction to that and really get you away from where you're headed, and like doesn't allow you to like create goals and to be able to get a lot done. So
and the purpose of entertainment, which is what screens primarily are, whether we're talking about watching TV or on our phone for entertainment purposes, is to recreate, to give us rest, to recharge us, to go out and do work. And, so there's a time for that. But I think everyone can relate to the feeling of when you veg out or when you binge watch and then you're done, you feel miserable.
Yeah.
You feel like doing nothing. You feel like being lazy. You don't feel like going, okay, great. That was a good time of rest. I'm recharged. Let's go. Let's hit this week hard. And I think that's a result from doing it too much.
Yeah.
And we were seeing that with our kids. There was a direct correlation between their attitude and their screen time.
Yeah, 100%. And when we took away screens for like every day, until that like Saturday, then I think that really like it changed so much in them. Like, and they are much sweeter when they're not on the screens, and also just like I said, just more engaged in the world around them, and wanting to explore, which I think is so good.
But I'm much sweeter when I'm not on my screen.
Aren't we all?
I remember a friend coming to town, and he was with us for a few days, and that challenge of when you're around other people's kids and they're behaving a certain way that you don't maybe agree with, or think like, hey, where's the parent? And you really don't want to say anything because it's not your place. Let me just reiterate, it's not your place. But this is a buddy of mine who I know so well, and we've done ministry together. And he said it in the nicest way possible. He said, hey, Jared, can I just give you, I don't want to overstep, but can I just give you a thought about, parenting? And he's got 5 kids and he's well ahead of us. And I was like, totally, like, tell me, please. And he said, hey, if you cut out screen time, we did that for our kids and we immediately saw a difference. And I was like, thank you, doing it now. Because I think what parents can do is sometimes they see the screen as my child's behavior isn't right. I don't have the time or the opportunity to deal with it right now, so let me give them a screen. That'll appease it. That's actually feeding it. Yeah. So if you take away the screen, you're actually dealing with some heart root issues. And obviously you need to be intentional as a parent and pouring into them and investing in them. But we did that with Felicity. Just immediately, just kind of went cold turkey and said, okay, we're going to play. We're going to engage her on a different level. We're going to have her engage the world around her without us. And you say Felicity because Evie really did not care for screens. So she was just kind of like, at that time she was really young. Just like running around, like you'd put on a show and then she would not be engaged in it. Not engaged at all. Yeah. But we saw an immediate it was like night and day difference.
Yeah.
And Felicity was happier because screens are meant to be something special. Like a movie is something special.
Yeah.
Like on a Friday night, I think we allowed it on a Friday night or on a Saturday afternoon for her to know, okay, we're going to go to a friend's house. We're going to come home and she's going to get to watch Journey to Bethlehem, which is a musical, you know, about the birth of Jesus. And she's excited. And then she watches it and it's not like, okay, now we're going to watch 10 more shows. No, that was it. There was an event. And
yeah, and she
enjoyed it. She loved it. Now she wants to go listen to the soundtrack. Yeah, she gets popcorn.
It's great.
So putting it in its right place. I really do think there's so many legalistic ways to be like, okay, phones are bad. Get rid of the phones, or all entertainment is bad. No, it just needs to be in its right place.
I remember once at church, I feel like somebody had mentioned, maybe it was, I don't know if it was like an actual church service or something. We were at some church setting and I had to take Evie with me. I don't know why, but maybe I didn't put her in nursery or something. And so I had her with me and she sat through half the service coloring. And then I turned on a show for her. And immediately I was like, I know I'm going to be judged. Like I have my kid in front of like whatever show I had given her, Bluey or something. And I was like, she's going to be sitting there watching it.
Nobody can judge you for watching Bluey.
Bluey's great. I actually kind of watch it myself.
It's a great show.
So anyhow, but I like gave her a show. And then they were talking about like screens and your kids and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is so great. You don't know that I actually don't let her watch all the time, but it looks like I'm one of those moms. You throw the phone over at her. But I was like, either that or I'm going to be walking around outside and not get to hear this message.
Right.
And we do limit her screen time. But like in those moments though, like too, I think there's also a side of it where you can become like, oh, we only do it this way. And I think like, we have grace for times where things come up and, you know, or like kids are sick and they're like melting and I'm like, okay, let's do all the other things. I try to like hold off on and not get them screens. And then that's like a last resort. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't want to become like, you know, like, oh yeah, this is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And then be like ashamed if somebody sees my kid with a phone because they don't have to know, you know, what we do at home. And you don't want to be like relying on that too much, but then you also don't want to be so afraid to use it when, you know, it can actually be helpful. And so every once in a while, I feel like those situations come up, but I just remember that very distinctly because they were talking about screen time and kids. And I was like, this is great. She's sitting here with a phone in her hand watching a show.
But that's why it needs to be done appropriately. Like you invest in our kids. So if I'm at work and you're home with the girls and you're playing with them, you're giving them direction, you're giving them things to color and you're giving crafts and all this stuff. And you're doing that for 5-6 hours. And then you go, hey, you know what? I'm going to make dinner or I'm going to have some downtime. So I'm going to let the girls watch a wholesome show or something. That's not bad. It just needs to be in its right place. Right. And there's some people who are going, oh, you put your kids in front of a screen. Well, no.
Sometimes
it's strategic.
Yeah, it is
wise.
strategic. It's not just like any time.
And it's allowing you to recharge.
Yeah. So most of the time, like most weeks, we're just doing one show day. And then every once in a while, then we'll have an exception. And it's really interesting to see because Felicity knows like it's not show day. And then she'll be like, oh, we get to watch a show. She's like, Evie, we're watching a show. Like she's so excited about it.
You hear the little pitter patter.
Yeah. And then they like run to wherever the TV is. And it's really cute because I think it actually like makes them appreciate it more.
Right.
And they're not just like glued to it and they don't ask for it. They used to ask like every day, like, can we watch a show? And if I told them no, they were like, oh, okay. Why can't we watch it today? But now they know. And so they don't ask. And if we like give that to them, then they're excited about it, you know? But then they're also more engaged in like Felicity is just starting to read some, like sounding out tons of words. And it's really cute because like she wants to sit and like read books to Evie. And she'll ask me, like if it's a big title, she'll ask me, what does the book say? And she wants to know the title of it. And then she'll just like...
She'll make up
her own story about that.
The other thing, and I don't know if a lot of kids do this, probably they do, but Felicity's favorite books, she memorized.
Yeah.
And so she literally could...
Quote it back.
Quote the entire book.
Yeah.
But she's eager to get into books. And Evie, you sent me the cutest picture of Evie who fell asleep.
With a book in her hand. It was so open. Adorable. And she was like holding it up in her bed. And that was like yesterday, wasn't it?
So cute.
It was adorable.
So, okay, that's another funny aspect, though. And it made me think of this moment where people judge others without context.
Yeah.
You know, of like...
I do it sometimes, too. It's unfortunate.
Well, we were walking. I got home from work one day, and the four of us were like, let's go for a walk. So we take the two girls out, and I'm with the girls. It's, you know, when I get home, it's like girl time. So I think I was wrestling with them. We were fighting on the carpet. You know, they were beating me up. And it was like, okay, let's go for a walk. Who wants to go for a walk? Yeah, I want to go for a walk. So we go out, and you and Evie were in a little buggy, and Felicity and I went down this hill together. She was running as fast as she could. I was running next to her. We get to the corner, and we're waiting for you to come down. And something came up where I was checking something, an event or something on my phone, and Felicity was next to me, and I literally just pull out my phone. I'm sitting there, and I look through, and a woman drives by and stops around a curve, almost gets hit by someone else who has to kind of swerve around her, rolls her window down, and she yells at me something like, get off your phone, spend time with your daughter, and then drives off. And I'm like,
wow, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And Felicity said, what did she say? And I said, don't worry about it, babe. But it was one of those moments where I totally see where someone could be fed up with a world where we're not focused on our kids.
Yeah.
And we're so distracted, and we never want to be that. And so that lady, you know, she probably had some baggage.
Yeah.
But she totally didn't get our situation in context.
She didn't understand like that you were just playing with them for like hours.
And was about to for more. But it's because there's a sensitivity to, we have so many distractions.
Yes.
And we are ignoring our children in the most pivotal years of their lives.
For sure.
And okay, here's a major point of conversation. We can ignore each other. And so our marriage can suffer because we're doing insignificant things and distracted by unnecessary distractions.
For sure. Yeah.
And so we want to fight for each other's attention in those moments. And I think for us, because we're not perfect at it, not even close, but I think for us, we do need to set barriers and say, okay, you know, we'll have Friday night movie night and pizza with the girls, or you know, you got to get your mini word puzzle done by this time or whatever. And not to be enslaved to those things, but to help us
just to like have some framework for what we want, because we do know what we want. And I think like even when we sit down and play a card game,
those are the best times.
That's so good, because then you're able to talk and relax. Like the kids are in bed.
Yep.
It's like an at-home date night, because we don't do like a weekly date night. It's just like we could, but we just don't do that every week. But we'll just go on like random dates here and there. And we're like, oh, we should go on a date tonight. Like, let's do it. So we'll get a babysitter and we'll go out. Or those times where we're just like sitting at the kitchen table playing whatever games we're playing. Phase 10. Phase 10's a good one. Skip-Bo. It's just fun, because then we're able to just chat and catch up on life. And it's just sweet, because then you're not distracted by phones or, you know, like watching a show. Those things are fun to do every once in a while, but you're not actually like really connecting. Yeah. You kind of are. You're sitting there, but you could sit next to anybody and watch a movie. Right. And so there's something about talking and connecting in that way, which has been really sweet. So that's one of our favorites. Yeah, watching a movie or TV is the least intimate way to spend time oftentimes. Not saying we don't do it or enjoy it and we're not going to keep doing it. We got our shows, girl. We do have our shows. We got our shows. We do. And we like to watch them together. So we won't watch them unless we are sitting down together. I mean, we don't watch TV like without being together. Barely. Oh, no, because... Unless like I'm feeling sick or something, then I will sit down and I'll watch like a couple episodes of Gilmore Girls or something, you know, because I'm like, but you don't need me there for that, because I ain't gonna watch that. You're gonna watch that with me. There are shows that we're like into, and we're thinking, man, I want to know what's happened, but you and I aren't gonna be able to watch it for a few nights or something. So the Great British Bake Off, we did that with like all of those. Oh yeah, and it's funny because like I feel like I don't love to bake. And I'm just not the best at it. I mean, cooking is fine, but like baking, it's just a different level. I don't know about that. So, anyhow, but we both got into that, and we would watch like every season, every episode. Yeah. If you know, you know. So anyhow, It's just so fun. Like so when you have those things to like do together.
We need to have a variety and, guarding that time, protecting that time. The other thing is, okay, not just phones, but just the busyness of life. Like a weekend can become a whirlwind.
And there will be those times where it's just chaos. So I feel like the past couple weeks for us has just been like we've been going, right? Like to Arkansas, I was able to stay a long while, and then you had to come back early. So you came back and you were working, and then it was just like so much chaos and craziness has happened.
But weddings. It's all good stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
Yeah. Just tons of things that we had on our calendar for like these 2 weeks. And then after that, it's like, then we can like catch our breath and get back into a normal rhythm of life. Because if you do that forever, it's not healthy. It's just not good for you.
And here's the other thing too is if you look back at good things and you're going, it's like fun activity. There's you're with people. But it can become exhausting if you're allowing that even to get in the way of like spending time in the Word or with each other. And I've been real convicted on that. I know you love it when we read Scripture together, and I need to do a better job of setting that time apart and doing that because that grounds you, it settles you, it sets your mind right, sets your heart right. And so then there's a way to do busyness well, and there's a way to do busyness poorly. And I think the way you can tell if you've done it well or poorly is if at the end of it, you're like wiped out and you, not just physically, but you're like, I'm done. I just want to get away. I don't want to do anything. Well, maybe you've kind of allowed those things to get in the way of, I don't know, staying charged and staying connected. Refueled. Because there are seasons of life where we've been crazy busy, but we feel recharged.
Yeah, totally.
And then there's others where it's the opposite, where it's like.
You're just dragging. Yeah. It's really hard to like do anything that you know you need to do. So that's a good point.
Interesting. So, okay, we're all battling it. We're all trying to do better.
So one thing I was just thinking about is how do you get tasks done? Like if you feel so like you're in a season of distraction, there's so much around you that's happening and you want to actually focus in and do the work that you know you're supposed to be doing. How do you go about that?
Yeah, I was telling you this morning, because we both woke up a little late, had a busy weekend. And I told you, when I wake up early and feel like I'm in control of my morning, the rest of the day goes really well.
So how do you do that? What does that look like?
Set the alarm, wake up, do your thing. No, I mean, it means, it starts with the day before, trying to get in bed at a good time because you need those hours, but then kicking off your day with intentionality. If I wake up and I'm reacting already, then I feel like I'm reacting the rest of the day. Okay, oh shoot, I wake up, okay, I've got 10 minutes before I've got to do this, and then I've got to go there, and then the rest of the day is kind of catching up. Whereas if I can wake up and go, okay, I've got 2 hours before I have my first responsibility, or I have an hour before the kids wake up, then I'm going to spend my time. I'm going to do 30 minutes, I'm going to work out, then I'm going to come back, I'm going to make breakfast, I'm going to spend some time in the Word, and then I'm ready to engage the world. I personally feel a lot more productive. I feel like I've got a hold on, I'm controlling the momentum of the day or where I'm going, and I don't drag as much. I've also found being task oriented and crossing tasks off a checklist.
Your checklist is impressive. I thought I need to get that because I feel like it's hard. I just do like a mental list a lot of times.
I'm checking stuff off right now.
Checking things off of your list, I like that. You have like the digital version. But when you have like an actual list in front of you and you're able to like check things off, it does make you feel more accomplished and also like motivates you to get the next thing done. Yeah. And so I'm all for that.
There's this app called Minimalist, and it's kind of clever. Minimalist.
Oh.
So it's minimalist, but minimalist.
That's what it's called. Yeah. And I like it.
So talk about a hit of dopamine. When you put in, I actually like putting stuff in because then you
brush teeth. Use deodorant, please.
Wake up, get shower. But then you cross it off and it does this little vibration on your phone and you feel like, hey, I've accomplished something. And then look, it's got everything I've done crossed off.
Oh, that's so impressive.
You feel like
I like
look,
it.
I'm accomplishing things. But if I do that for my day, instead of just having this sort of nebulous, like, I've got to do stuff today, but knowing, okay, I've got 3 meetings, then I've got to hit this writing project, and then I've got to call this person back, and I've got to pay this bill. So now I have 7 things to do or 6 things to do. And then as they're done, it's like, boom, done, boom, done, boom, done. And it actually is the same. You're actually tapping into the same, system of what distracts you on the Instagram reels or the text messages or something superfluous, but you're actually being productive with it. So, I don't know. Ask the experts on the limbic system or whatever what I'm talking about, because I'm not exactly sure. But that same, like, where you feel the hit of dopamine, you're like,
I get it.
Oh yeah, this is fun almost, because you're like, accomplishing something.
Yes, you're like challenging yourself to do better.
So even something you can even do that relationally, like I'm just brainstorming here, but okay, spend time with Ginger in the Bible.
Check.
Yeah, you don't want relationships to become this checklist. Like, but if you're really struggling with screen time or struggling with distraction, or if you're feeling disconnected,
it's not a bad thing to do.
No, it's not bad, because you need something to kind of kickstart
to drive you.
And so for you and me, when we feel like we're not connected, when we're not feeling like close because we've got all this stuff going on, well, we could either just let that play out and just let it keep rolling and just do what we're doing and shrug it off, or we could go, no, we've got to reconnect. Like, we need a little retreat with you and me, and not necessarily out in the mountains in a cabin, but just a retreat from the busyness of life, or everything that's going on, so you and I can reconnect. Yeah. Like, we need to pause. We need to put our phones down. We need to put them away, and we need to talk, and we need to enjoy each other. Get out a nice charcuterie board and spend an evening talking, playing cards, whatever. But it just takes intentionality. And I think we recharge pretty quickly in that regard. And
because we're both pretty extroverted. I feel like sometimes I feel introverted. Every once in a while I'll get like that. But for the most part, like, we don't need that much time away for us to like connect, come back together, be ready to go back out and like serve and pour into people, be involved in ministry, whatever it is. But it is important that you have that time, even if you're an extrovert, like, you need that time together and to focus, and also just to like be still before the Lord. I think that's something that we all need to like, make sure that we have that time. And I feel like in the busy seasons, it can be so hard. And with like little kids, it can be so hard. And it's not always picture perfect, but I feel like that's something that does recharge you. And so when you're able to do that, like even alone together, or just take a couple minutes to at night, like there have been so many nights where I'm just like, if I'm scrolling or something, then I just think, I was like, wait, did I even read this morning? Like, did I read anything? So then just taking a couple minutes to like think about, a couple verses, just like saturate your mind with that as you go to bed is like helpful.
And it's easy to guilt people, and it's easy on a podcast platform like this to go, oh, we've got it figured out, or somebody's like scrolling and they're listening to us and we're going, you shouldn't be doing that. It's helpful to think of the large picture. If you really just seek to be more intentional, and we're preaching to ourselves here because we're not perfect at this and we've got a long way to go. But if you're seeking to be intentional and you just have that in your mind, you're going to look back over your life over the long period and go, wow, I'm really grateful that I've intentionally pursued relationships or pursued my children or sought to make some changes that you're not always going to, it's not like you can't scroll at night or you can't laugh. I have my buddies and I'm constantly sending you Instagram reels, but it's cool to laugh at those things and enjoy that. But if you're putting your life on a trajectory of intentionality and a trajectory of being enamored by the right spectacles over the long time, it'll pay back. You'll see the difference.
Yeah. And I feel like there's some seasons where I'll go through where I have regrets of like how I spent that season. If it's like a summer and there's just, okay, what am I supposed to do in summer? Cause it's like, you don't have the routine of school or things like that. And you can look back at that and be like, okay, I didn't handle that so well. Then the next time I want to do better and be more intentional. Like those are good things. It's good to like be challenged by that, you know, but then also, like you said, you don't want to focus too much on like the guilt side of it as well, because then it can just beat you down.
Yeah. You're pursuing improvement, but not from a place of condemnation.
Yes.
It's like, yeah, we can always improve and we can always do better. And we haven't figured out the perfect balance of life.
Yeah.
And we never will. And if you think back, you know, to any family growing up, the kids, I don't think any kids are looking back going, my parents did everything perfectly and we had the perfect work-life balance. Well, no, I mean, but as a whole picture, your experience of life, if you have the right goals and you have the right priorities, that will shine through in the long term, and that will prove itself to be, produce good fruit. And so it begins with having a priority of, obviously, if you are allowing even good things to distract you from serving Christ and loving him and pursuing him, whether they're good or not, they're in the wrong place. And that's what the preacher to the Hebrews in chapter 12 is saying too. Like, they're allowing good things to keep them from the best thing. So that's number one. So if you're not serving in your church, if you're not involved in church, if you're not going to church because you're like, well, I just got other stuff to do, reorient your priorities, because that is a weight that's going to keep you from pursuing Jesus. But then as we navigate other aspects of life, it's like, I am thinking of all the ways that I could be a better husband and a better father. And I'm never going to be a perfect husband or a perfect father, but I can ask the Lord, help me be better and help me be less distracted and help me be more intentional. And I think that'll bear good fruit because the Lord answers those prayers, but it takes intentionality.
Yeah.
But then those days where I'm like, man, I was kind of distracted. I didn't notice Felicity and she wanted my attention and I was kind of absorbed in my work. Well, I don't have to condemn myself for that, but I can also say, all right, Jer, work on that, focus on that, and try to be less distracted, less divided.
I like it.
So the last thing we'd want is a podcast like this to condemn everybody, because here's the deal, Ginge. What if people are like, man, those podcasts I listen to are a distraction?
Oh, yeah.
Sheesh.
Maybe the podcast is a big distraction.
No, we don't want it to be a distraction.
So don't
we want
more.
No, we want them to listen to it. No, subscribe. That's the opposite.
I listen to podcasts. I'll tell you, I listen to podcasts often. I'll probably listen to one. I mean, most weeks I'll probably listen like 4 days a week, because I will listen in
and
like
after
when I'm
our
like,
podcast, what's your favorite to listen to? No, you
word,
haven't listened to a single one of ourselves.
I have not listened to us.
Can you listen to yourself talk?
No, that's weird. That's just weird. So I don't listen to us.
I agree, by the way.
I just listen to like a wide variety, but a handful of them. Allie Beth Stuckey, I love her podcast.
She's
listened
been stepping
to
it up
some
too.
recently. Raising Heights.
By
Tori and Zach Roloff.
Yep.
I just feel like it's fun to like listen to some other people who are in been in a similar setting as you. So
Matt and Abby.
It's kind of fun. Matt and Abby. I do listen to them now.
Okay, so hear us and don't cut out podcasts.
Yeah,
Just
I'll listen to podcasts and I'll tell you when I listen
to
them. I'll tell you when I listen to them. It's not a distraction. It's actually helpful.
Yeah, talk about it.
So if I'm not feeling motivated to like get up and like I have laundry, I have dishes, I have all those normal things that I need to get done. Like the other day, I was just like struggling. I was like, I actually stayed home from church because Evie was not. She had like sniffles. So I kept her back. You still went with Felicity. And so I like had this window of time and I thought Sunday, like usually I just rest on Sundays, like don't do too much work, but I don't know. I was like, I have piles of laundry. We don't have clean clothes. I need to do this. So I turned on a podcast and I listened through, and then I turned on another podcast. And so like, that's how much time I judge. Like I judge my time of how much work I've gotten done. So I like listened to like 2 hour-long podcasts or 45-minute podcast. And then I was able to get a ton of work done. So I feel like it actually helps me be more productive. And I could turn on music, but I rarely do that because then I'm like, I'm not so great with like knowing what to listen to.
Yeah.
I just listen to the same stuff
over and over. You have a funny relationship with music.
Oh, it's bad. Do you want to tell them about it?
Well, you just never know artists.
I don't know artists, but I also, songs? After I listen to songs, like you'll listen to, like for instance, when Kanye's like Sunday Service album came out, you wanted to listen to it every single day for like a month, and you would turn it on in the car, and I'd be like, babe, I already listened to this song.
Jesus is king.
Jesus is king. But the thing is, I can only listen to the song so many times within a week.
You're like my dad.
I'm like, I've heard it. That's beautiful. I like it. And then now if I listen to it, it'll take me back to that time of when we went to like the Sunday service, like thing at the Forum, you know, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. So I'll turn it on now here and there, but I cannot listen to the same music over and over. We were at a college event, like it was like last weekend or whatever. And we were there and I was sitting trying to like enjoy this meal. We were in line for dessert and I was about to go insane because the music that they were playing the same song over and over again. And I was like, I'm gonna go insane. I gotta leave. This is crazy, or I gotta have somebody change the song, because I hear the music. Like I will listen to what's on. It's not just background music to me. And it was the same rhythm and I could hear it. And then it was the same guitar part, the same drum part. And I was like, oh boy, we gotta change this. It's really funny. You probably didn't even notice, did you? No. Under the pavilion, like that was what they had playing. Yeah. So anyhow.
That's funny. My dad is like that. He'll be like, didn't we listen to this song? I'm like, yeah, like last week, Dad. Like we listened to it again. That's how you
But I'm that way with movies. I'm that way with movies.
Yep.
If I've seen a movie, unless it's like every once in a while, you know, it'll be like a classic. So at Christmas time, or there's like a fall movie that you want to watch, I can rewatch that. Or like Seinfeld episodes, I can rewatch those. The Office, there are some that are classic enough to rewatch, but movies, I'm like one and done. Like I've seen it, I don't need to see it again. Even if I forgot half of it, I'm gonna remember half of it halfway through.
But you impose that on me too, because the other day I was like, I had to travel this summer, and on a couple of the plane rides I watched Dune, and then I watched Dune 2.
You're like, so we should watch it.
We should watch it, and you were like, but you've seen it.
You've seen it. I was like, you've seen it already.
I was like, yeah, but I'll watch it with you.
I was like, wow, that's sacrifice, you know? And I know that you don't care. Like you've showed me so many movies that you've seen and loved. But for me, I'm thinking he's sacrificing to do this for me because I don't like to rewatch movies.
That's so funny.
That's funny. Okay. Distractions. I got distracted talking about that.
No, what we were trying to say is don't cut out podcasts.
Don't do it.
Because we need you to subscribe to our podcast.
I feel like it's helpful though, like on commutes, on drives. Like I was in 3 hours of traffic. I went to do a podcast.
With Lila Rose.
And so I went to do her podcast. And as I was in the car by myself, I was like, it's so quiet. I don't want to listen to music. So I listened to like 3 podcasts to get me there and then 2 more to get me back. And it was great. Wow. I love it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm trying to be less distracted. We need to spend more time undistracted time. We're going to do it. Hope this has been an encouragement to you guys as you've listened and not a discouragement.
Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't discouraging.
We're all trying to figure it out together. So. We're all trying to beat Apple and Netflix, and as they try to keep us binge watching and
we should just live off the grid, babe.
Yeah.
No Wi-Fi.
Back to homesteading.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. Well, thanks for hanging out, guys. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.